What's up guys, Chen here. Welcome to another episode of Hoonigan Autofocus. Today we're focusing on this, what is this thing? This thing is crazy.
It's a mostly stock 67 Camaro. Built in a garage by a bunch of rednecks in Dallas.
It's got a 3/4 race cam and some N70s on the back, and we got a monster tack. Yeah. But other than that, it's all pretty much, it's almost stock.
Yeah. I like that. Craigslist be like, yeah, I know what I got, bro.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
No lowballers.
Exactly.
We got Tommy
Boileau
from Pikes Peak International Raceway, right?
Yeah.
You actually had a chance to drive last year, was your rookie year up Pikes Peak, and then that car, my good friend Rob Parsons, aka Chair Slayer, is driving this year, but with hand controls. But have you upgraded? I guess
it's a big upgrade for sure. I mean, last year the car was rad. It was that 67. That's this thing. It was that 2013 Chevy SS NASCAR built by the Furniture Row Racing guys. So took that car last year, bolted a turbo to it, and went up and won Rookie of the Year. But realistically, I mean, geometry was way off on all the suspension. The engine was way underpowered compared to this thing.
It turns left mostly, but then right sometimes.
Turned like a champ to the left, but you try to throw a slide at it and it wasn't super happy. But no, this car is an amazing upgrade. I mean, Mike's been developing this car for the past 5 years to really be a jack of all trades. The car can do autocross incredibly well, proper around a racetrack, and really for Pikes Peak, it's the perfect weapon. So I'm just super stoked. This thing's got, honestly, way too much power. Mark Donahue said if you can leave 2 black stripes from the exit of one corner to the entry of the next, you've got enough power, and this car can do it. So it's incredibly rowdy, it handles really well. We've got the best engineers working with us from really all over the world that have done all kinds of crazy stuff. So I'm just super stoked to have the opportunity to wheel this thing.
Yeah. Well, can we take a look at this? Can we do a little walk around? So Mike, can you introduce yourself? Where are you from?
I'm Mike Dusold. I'm from Lewisville, Texas. I have a shop called Dusold Designs there. We do custom car builds and maintenance and upgrades. We do a lot of muscle cars, but we do late models as well. Muscle cars is kind of where our heart lies. And this car was developed as a test bed so that we could basically develop how are we going to make these muscle cars faster and faster and faster and be able to keep up with race prep Corvettes or Porsches or cars like that. You know, we want to go take a car that looks like a muscle car and go beat exotics with it.
So, I mean, you've taken basically the pro mod to like the next level. It's like the pro mod.
It's like ultra pro touring.
Ultra pro. Right. Oh, no, sorry. Pro touring. That's the term. So you've taken pro touring to really pro touring.
Yeah, like the pro is bold, capital, large, underlined. You know, it's there's a lot of pro. Touring's a little bit smaller, but we'll drive the car anywhere. Like this car still has license plates, full interior. It's registered as a 67 Camaro. It has a factory affixed VIN on it. So it's insured, everything.
It's a street car, sir.
Yeah, like this, you could go drive this car. Honestly, we could go drive this car to dinner or lunch right after tech if we wanted. It'd be no problem.
I'm there. Thanks for the invite. I'm there.
Dude, Larry, if you want to jump in the passenger seat, you and I will go to lunch in this car.
I'll sit on the wing. So we've had a chance to feature this actually before. My partner Lewis actually shot this at Grid Life a couple years at Road Atlanta, but of course it's a different car now. Plus, on top of that, we featured a car that you had your hands on, Ferris Khartoumy's Time Attack villain-like Corvette. That thing is insane.
Yeah, Ferris is a good friend of mine, and we help each other on each other's cars. So Ferris's car is in my shop pretty much before every event, getting something done to it. So we work on his car. Ferris actually helped with a lot of the plumbing on this car. So we're really great friends, and we compete with each other locally a lot. He uses me as a test bed, and I use him as a test bed, you know, kind of a good marking stick of how fast are we. So it's fun. Those cars are these 2 cars run together all the time. So it's funny that they're both 427 LSs with Brodix heads and twin turbos and sequential gearboxes and everything at this point, because we just kind of kept forcing each other into escalation over the years. But it's a lot of fun, and it's cool to have a friend that you could go run with that has a similar car, and we could have crazy bets. Like Ferris really screwed up recently. He bet me beers for life that I wouldn't get to a 110 at our local track before he did. So as soon as we're done with the hill climb, I'm putting the stickiest slicks I could find on it, and I'm gonna go get free beer for the rest of my life from Ferris.
Damn. Ferris, you messed up, bro. you done messed up. Let's take a look at the motor on this thing. This thing is insane.
Absolutely.
What the?
So,
All right, so tell me what I'm looking at. Like,
so
what's going on here, Tommy? You're gonna take this up
This
and
right here
on?
takes a hurricane, puts it in a tornado dispenser, and then it just does magic and goes real fast.
So one of the biggest things that causes problems with the vintage cars is the aerodynamics, right? So they were bricks, and they were not intended to go 180 miles an hour or 200 miles an hour. And one of the things that they really have a lot of problems with is the flow through the radiator. It causes cooling issues, and it also causes a lot of downforce issues. So on this car, because we have so much engine setback, we were able to lean the radiator down a lot and then figure out the proper size of the inlet in the front. And then the ducting here makes sure all of the hot air exits out the top of the car and around the greenhouse so that we don't get any positive pressure under the front of the car, causing lift and creating downforce issues.
Wow. Okay. All right. So tell me about the motor.
So the engine is a dart block. It's got Brodix BR7 heads that the guys at Land Speed spent like forever porting. It's got all the best goodies you can think of in there with the super alloy valves and the good springs, and they've done a lot of work with the squish band and everything and in the heads and a lot of real trick, top secret stuff. And Al at CMP spent tons of time on the design of the engine overall with the cam specs and making sure that everything was going to work correctly. So we spent a lot of time with the dynamic compression and what the valve timing is doing so that it spools the turbos better. And Tim at Motorsports Electronics has been working his wizardry on the Motec lately, and he said it's one of the more efficient engines he's ever seen on the dyno. It makes power everywhere, which he said normally turbo motors they don't build as much power off boost. And he's like, this motor is so strong off boost and on boost. He's like, it's crazy. And he tunes a lot of really wild cars, but he's kind of hooked on the LS turbo thing after tuning on this thing.
Okay, so how much power did you guys actually put down in this thing?
So we normally just stop it at 16 pounds because it'll make more power than we really need it to for this. And we start to worry about breakage. The other night on the dyno, it spun twice because it's hard to get it to hook up on the dyno. And with spinning twice, it put 1,022 at the ground. We think the way it's set right now, we're thinking it's realistically in the 1,050 to 1,100 wheel currently.
Okay, that's quite a bit. Wait, so then is that going to make that altitude then?
It loses at altitude. So 1,022 was at sea level basically in Dallas, which is like 700 feet. Right. The other day in Denver, it was making right around 800 wheel. And at the top, it's making a little bit less. But what we're really surprised about is at the bottom section, it's able to make the bigger boost than it was making in Denver. So it was liking the cold air. So trying to put an actual pin in the exact power that it's making, the only way to do it close would be looking at the fuel consumption. So we think we're on the mountain running it in between 800 and maybe, we might be on the lower end at 7 at the top and then go up to maybe 850.
She still gets her done.
At altitude.
And it doesn't have traction control.
Oh, absolutely.
It's all on this right foot. No, we got this bad boy right here. No, it's got the Bosch stuff in there. So I mean, it's impressive at what this car can do. I mean, although it is like just incredibly vicious and nasty, it's actually pretty easy to drive, relatively speaking. I mean, you still got to manhandle this thing, but the car is just a treat, man. It's epic.
The suspension is crazy, huh?
Basically, we took it as a blank sheet of paper and just designed what we thought would work really well. And we've been developing that over 5 years. And I've got a friend, Scott Best, who's a great engineer. He works in IMSA and he worked in Australian supercars. So he's worked on all these crazy cars. And he's kind of helped us out with some of the neat stuff. Like, I don't know if you could see the cantilever sway bar. So down there's the cantilever that operates the sway bar. And we can actually change the sway bar motion ratio. And we can also make it digressive or progressive, which is all really neat trick stuff that we do to kind of just help the grip level and make it do what we want. We also do a lot of tuning with different spring rates. We can adjust the anti-dive and anti-squat in the car, the roll center heights, camber curves, all that stuff's adjustable. The way we built it, it has slugs at all the mounting points, so you can basically any suspension pickup point in the car is adjustable and can be moved to do whatever we want for any particular event that we're actually going to run. So for this event, we're running it very similar to the way we ran it in the Ultimate Street Car, because we feel like a lot of the disciplines that we had to do in that are very similar to what the mountain throws at you, where we have some high-speed stuff, we have some low-speed stuff, we have some that's just straight dig out of corners, and it's drag strips and braking zones, and then you might go through a corner at 120 miles an hour or 130 miles an hour. So the car's set up so that it does well at everything. So it's just been, the way it's set up right now, it'll do a standing start. It'll do, just massive braking. It'll do high-speed turns. If we do other events in the future, like we go do some time attack stuff, we'll probably tweak that to make it fit the specific tracks. But because of the way we designed it, we can do that easily. It's just taking some bolts out and moving some stuff around.
It's so crazy because you essentially could build any platform at this point, right?
Oh, yeah.
You could build a light model Corvette and you could potentially go faster. But you would rather not. You would rather start with something like this. And this still has glass.
Yeah. Well, it was originally built as my daily driver.
Hence why it has all these fancy things, which we'll talk about.
Yeah, no,
like it's like bedazzled.
Oh, dude, it's so fancy. It feels like I'm driving something that's not just gonna be a rocket ship, and then you're like, oh, it's aeronautical gauges from an actual fighter plane from World War II. It's epic. Everything about this car, not just mechanically, but visually, is just so stunning, and the car's just so raw and epic, and Mike's just gone through every detail. I mean, there's leather wrapped around every bit of the interior, and
wait,
so it's just beautiful.
I don't have to tell you that you would actually go faster without that stuff. I mean,
honestly, this car makes so much power, throw more weight at it, and we're not even really gonna notice. This thing's just a weapon.
The thing that I wanted to do was build a car that was cool first and fast second. Like the hideaway headlights in the front still work.
Oh, what? Let me see.
Yeah.
That's actually one of my favorite.
They're not plugged in right now, but yes, these.
That's actually one of my favorite features of the 67.
Yeah, there's still headlights in there. The motors still work. We got to change the plug on it. We may or may not have messed up and melted the plug, but all that stuff still works. And when I was a kid, man, I thought that those hideaway headlights were the coolest thing ever. And I can't have one of these cars without those working, because it's like, man, the little kid in me just wants the cool stuff. I want it to look
honestly
cool.
Is super cool. I love that. I would have thought that it would just be blocked off and there's nothing behind it to save weight.
No, it just wouldn't be cool.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the thing that I think makes it fun, is that it's not only a race car. It's a car we could go drive, and we actually said our plan is after the event on Sunday, everything goes our way, we're driving this thing to dinner.
We're driving her off the mountain and getting some beers, dude.
Awesome. I'm there.
We are driving it to the pub after the race.
Let's check out the interior. Oh, wow. This thing is fancy, sir. Yeah. Oh, I can't believe this. You did all of this yourself?
Yeah, we did all that. We have an upholstery guy that does the leather work for us. But all of the fab work and everything, we did. All the aluminum and everything's just handmade and then custom wrapped. Because we wanted to give it kind of a fighter plane cockpit vibe when you're sitting in the car. I have a customer that I did a lot of work on old World War II warbirds. And I just loved the way that planes just felt like they had a soul and they told a story, right? And when you're sitting in it, you're just like, man, somebody was facing life and death in this seat. And this plane had to get them home, and I wanted to kind of get that same vibe with the car, where when you sit in it, it feels like it's got a soul, it could tell a story, it's purpose-built, but it's got the right vibe.
But the crazy thing is, those planes were built not for aesthetics, they were built for function, but they happen to have that look that kind of got passed along to drag racing, land speed racing, right? The belly tankers, all of that. And then it's cool that you've continued the theme a little bit throughout this build. I can't believe how insane this is. What is this back here, the fuel system?
Those tubes actually duct air to the oil and transmission cooler. So the oil and transmission cooler's in that duct back there, and there's a fan on it, and then the inlet air comes through the side scoops.
Wow. All right, so tell me about this. You made all of this yourself.
Yeah, all of that's handmade out of aluminum.
Unbelievable. And these are actual gauges.
Yeah, those are all functional aircraft gauges.
Wow. I absolutely love it so much. I can't believe you guys got to repurpose all of this. So the RPM gauge is actually aircraft?
Well, RPM on aircraft actually read really low. They look like diesel truck tachometers. So that RPM gauge, I actually lettered that by hand. And we had to change the guts out to make it work with the car stuff, but all the housing and face and everything is old vintage aircraft. So, but the manifold pressure gauge was actually new in a box, and that's for a P-51 Mustang. So it gives it a little bit of extra soul that it's actually a P-51 Mustang manifold pressure gauge. I think the airspeed indicator is also a Mustang airspeed indicator.
I just love the little things. First of all, the seats are really nicely upholstered. The leather is really worn in and used, it looks like.
Yeah.
It still looks comfortable, but you still have things like the the dome lamp.
Yeah, with the wiring hanging down, so that's a little bit of a foul.
No, I like it. I like it. It's all little textures, and this doesn't need to look this way. In fact, it could be completely bare, and like I said, you would probably lose a lot of weight, but it doesn't really matter since this thing makes so much power anyways. So what is all this stuff?
That's all the fuses and relays and circuit breakers. In the aircraft, they have them all accessible.
And this is the actual aircraft one?
Those aren't actual aircraft parts. Those are more motorsport style parts.
But you decided to display it here.
Yeah, we put it together kind of the way that the planes would be done. And that panel actually folds down so that you can access all the wiring, and the ECU's right behind there. So if you need to do any wiring work on the car, you basically just fold that down in your lap, and it's like a little table, and you can work on any of the wiring.
That's incredible. Really good job. Very, very good job. Alright, so we had to move because we're in the tech line now, and they're actually getting teched for the race. So we got the trunk off here. There's a lot going on here. I don't even know what to say. So this is like you have like a cantilever set up here?
Yeah, the rear suspension's all cantilever. We ran into an issue where we were having trouble packaging the rear shocks and getting tire clearance with where we wanted to put the control arms. So the cantilever setup just made more sense. So you could actually change the spring rates from inside the trunk, which is kind of a nice thing.
I honestly could say I've never seen anything like this, because usually if it's cantilever set up, it's going this way, right?
Yeah.
But this is actually facing the rear, plus you have the reservoirs on the cage. It's really trick.
Thanks. Yeah, it's worked out really well. We've had it that way for years now, and we're able to get the motion ratio we want, and also it does a really good job of, because of the way it goes into that V, it's a super strong part of the chassis, so the load gets absorbed really well into the chassis.
Right, I see that, because this actually, so how much of this is the actual chassis or cage? Because did you back half the car or anything?
The car
or
is fully chassied, so
okay.
the chassis was completely built from scratch.
Ah, and then it's the body just tacked onto it, basically.
Yeah, we basically took the body structure and then it's a bolt-on now. And then we made the chassis and cage all one thing, because we wanted to make such radical changes to the geometry that there was no way to modify the factory. Like, this has a Corvette transaxle in the back. Like, the transmission's right there, it's not in the front.
Oh, so this is from what Corvette?
It's a C6 Z06 diff, and it's a SADEV sequential transmission that's built as a replacement trans for the C6 Corvette. So by moving all that weight to the rear, this car is actually 52% rear heavy, which is the opposite of what a Camaro would normally be. Normally a Camaro is about 52 to 54% front heavy, which causes them a lot of handling issues. So that was one of the main things we wanted to do, was get that weight back. And we also worked really hard trying to get our polar moment of inertia really tight and as close to the center of the car as we can. So
how much does this weigh now?
The car is pretty heavy right now. It's a 3,050, the way it sits right now.
But that's still pretty light for.
It feels heavy. When I first built this car and it was super gutted, it didn't have anything in it. It weighed 2,450 pounds. But it didn't have an interior. It didn't have a dry sump. It didn't have. That was like a motor and 2 seats and kind of a Camaro body. And it was really light, but the car just sucked. And, it wasn't any fun. It got hot. So now we've got it set up where we can run it longer periods of time. And this is our good luck charm. If she's not on there, we're screwed.
That's why you have 2 zip ties on there.
Yeah, she can't go. She's got to be there.
I love this so much. I love all the little touches. The livery is super cool. It's kind of like airplane-like too.
Yeah, it's based on the Jolly Roger Squadron. Corsair is what we kind of styled it after. The stripes are a little bit different than what they did, and we played with it, but we wanted it to kind of have that historical vibe to it, where it felt like it was there for a reason. It wasn't just to look cool.
So, Tommy, did you kill Kenny, or what happened here?
That's kind of a funny story about one of our buddies, Ken Thwaites, that used to race in the Optima series with us. Him and I had a really big rivalry for a long time, and he won the championship. And then the next year, I talked a lot of trash and told him that I was going to win the championship. And when I won the championship and beat him, I put the "I killed Kenny" sticker on there. So
it doesn't have anything to do with the fact that we're in Colorado.
I mean, we are in Colorado though, right? So therefore, maybe we drive it to South Park.
Yeah, we could go. Is there an actual South Park?
There's an actual South Park.
I didn't even know that. Where's that?
Like up near Estes Park and stuff up in the mountains.
Really?
We could drive this thing all the way to South Park, do some donuts, try not to go to jail. Like maybe we'll see what happens.
I love the hand-drawn, this is like a Formula One.
I've got a lot of stuff going on in there for sure. So I mean, most of the stuff I get the settings where I want them, and for the most part leave it.
Draw it on that?
No, my handwriting's illegible. I'm a doctor if I'm not driving, but
Sir, that goes up to 11.
turn it up to 11. 10's not enough.
Which one is it? Which one goes up to 11? Is that ABS?
So that's actually, that's our ABS. We've also got like our boost. That one only goes up to 10, but ABS goes up to 11, or I can just turn it all the way off. Right now I'm running it at like 4. But yeah, hopefully I don't need it to crank that thing up to 11, but up in the top section, you're just like full on whoops. I might need it up there. Yeah. So we'll see.
I absolutely love that. Like you look at Formula One steering wheels and you look at something like this. This is all function.
Yeah, it's all there for a reason. The main thing we did recently in the refit of the car is we wanted it where you didn't have to take your hands off the wheel. So this thing can be a handful and it's easy to lose traction and get sideways. We wanted him to have both hands on the wheel and just drive.
Yeah. I mean, okay, so this is the shifter too.
Yeah, so left paddle just goes down a gear, right paddle goes up a gear, and this thing's got such a fast steering rack in it where full lock to lock's basically 180 degrees. So my hands never really leave the wheel, and I've occasionally use some adjustments with the stuff. We've got boost, traction control, slip, and ramp, and things like that. But for the most part, I just get it set and just keep banging gears till she runs out of juice.
And I'm kind of a dummy when it comes to this. So is this electric or is this pneumatic or?
It's electric over hydraulic. So the switches are just basically ground side switches. And then in the back here, you could see a tank, like a little nylon reservoir. That's actually the hydraulic reservoir for the SADEV components. And there's a hydraulic system that builds up pressure, holds it in an accumulator, and then when you push the button, it fires an actuator that shifts the gear for you.
Because it actually has a clutch.
Yeah, but you don't use it. You only use the clutch to start or stop. After you're rolling, it's because it's a full sequential dog box, you don't have to use the clutch ever to shift. It just shifts immediately.
Keep it flat, full throttle. Just,
So you go like this, put it in first, then you have to release the clutch,
then you
engage
drive it kind of like a normal car.
Right.
And then after that,
it's just
up and
bang,
down,
bang,
up
bang,
and
bang.
down. Yeah.
Wow.
And it sounds all rowdy. It makes all the right sounds when you're got the ignition cut going and whatnot. It's awesome.
Because and also like you can change how hard it's shifting and everything too, right? That's something that you dial in.
Yeah, it changes all the shift timing and the cuts, and it'll change the torque after the shifts and before the shifts, and there's
We've got all kinds of crazy stuff. Boost by gear, so like first gear is pretty low boost just because it'll just burn the tires off immediately. Second gear is a little more. Third gear is 100% boost, and then there on out it's just full party mode. So it's insane.
Well, I cannot wait to see. Oh, so what is this? Is it called the Made in Texas?
Yeah.
I like it. I like the graphic. This is very like World War II plane.
Yeah. Well, and I painted that myself at SEMA one year, which was kind of funny.
Oh, cool.
Because usually the way this goes is we're always thrashing to get it together. So that year at SEMA, we were still like fiddling with the car at SEMA, which was fun. So.
Of course, you have Wilwood Brakes on here.
Oh yeah. Yeah, we've been working with Wilwood for a long time, and we really like their product, and the brakes have worked great for us.
And part of it is that they support the older cars and older technology for you to be able to put into the older cars.
Yeah, and we use Wilwood every day on the builds at the shop on all the vintage cars. So we try to help develop all those products the best that we can and use them, you know, in higher and higher and higher levels of competition, and just see what do we need to do, how do we make this stuff better, how do we make it work. Because honestly, the brake package on this car that we developed for this car, we put on cars all the time at the shop because we know it works. You know, we know how it feels, we know how it holds up, we know what pad we like, with what rotor size, with what caliper piston area. You know, we've spent years developing all that on this car so that we're better able to help our customers in the shop.
And one of the misconceptions is with hill climb, it's like, oh, why do you need brakes? You're going uphill.
Oh, yeah.
Actually, you need crazy brake cooling because low altitude, the air is just a lot thinner. And on top of that, you're actually having to stop from whatever. What's your top speed? Like one?
So this car is ridiculous up here. I think last year in that NASCAR, my top speed was like 120 something. I'm over 140 in a couple different spots in this car.
140 down to what?
Down to a couple corners, like 140 down to literally probably 35, 40 miles an hour. So you're scrubbing 100 miles an hour in a pretty short zone. So we're pulling like 2 Gs of braking force with this car. So we really need these things to work really well, but that builds up a lot of heat because you really also don't have a whole lot of straightaways to cool these things off. You're always on the brake. A lot of left foot braking to keep balance and things like that. So lots of crazy ducting to get as little air as up there to cool these things off.
Well, good luck, guys. I'm gonna be up there cheering you on. I'll be at the starting line. I'll watch you guys leave, and then Lewis and Leaf will receive you guys up at the top with you celebrating.
Partying. It's gonna be great.
Spraying some champagne, all of that.
Yeah, all the cool stuff that happens after you're victorious, right?
Exactly.
Awesome. I think that's a wrap.